an absolute privilege to introduce a leader who represents the very best of India's administrative excellence. In fact, we have the august presence of Shri Sanjay Jaju, Secretary, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. First up, can we have a huge round of applause? Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. Thank you very much again. Despite your busy schedule, we are truly grateful that you've joined us here. In fact, we all know him as an engineer, a management professional, and most importantly, a reform-driven policymaker who spent decades shaping India's governance landscape across infrastructure, defense production, digital governance as well. But that being said, before we invite him to share his words with us, I'd like to firstly request Manisha Kapoor and Mr. Sudhanshu Vats, if I could request both of you to please come on stage, and if I could humbly request Shri Sanjay Jaju as well to please join in, sir. We'd like to felicitate you, to welcome you to the summit. Well, yes, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone seated over here, a distinguished member of the 1992 batch of the Indian Administrative Service, we are in the presence of a leader who embodies innovation, integrity, and relentless pursuit of better governance for the millions of citizens. One more time, please put your hands together. Please help me welcome on stage Shri Sanjay Jaju.
Good morning, distinguished members of the industry, members of the office bearers from ASCI, and all the participants of coming from all over. A very good morning to each one of you. Friends, it's indeed a privilege that I am here at the first ever, right, AdTrust Summit. I've been in regular conversations and in touch with ASCI. They were very important stakeholders of our ministry. And I'm very happy that they've taken upon themselves this responsibility to bring all the stakeholders together and deliberate on this very important sector. And I call it a sector because, believe me, the entire media and entertainment world, if you look at their income and expenditure statements, on the income side, there are only two ways in which they can entertain people, right? Either they entertain them through tickets and subscription, charge them for what they consume, or they collect money from advertisers, effectively. So the entire industry actually depends on advertising as a segment. And so much of happiness that we have all around, watching content, watching sports, is all coming in from the efforts actually put in by many of you, the advertising professionals. And that's why it lies at the heart of media and entertainment. And I don't consider this to be merely a commercial activity. It's a powerful instrument of market making. How do we buy something if we don't know what it is, right? And what are its advantages, or what are its pluses? Of course, what are its minuses as well? So it's a huge effort in terms of market making, brand building. Why that alone? Consumer information. Every other day you have something that comes out on television, issued by Reserve Bank of India, issued by various ministries in Government of India, helping consumers, helping stakeholders. Again, a great effort. Not just that, it's also an effort in cultural signaling, because, it does help in, creating a different layer of culture. What we wear, what we look like, depends on, what you guys tell us, effectively. So to that extent, it has a huge influence on our soft understanding of the world. And in a large, diverse, and a very fast digitizing economy like ours, it's really a very important instrument in terms of how our aspirations get shaped and how we make our choices. So, friends, that's why this conference is at a very important point, because all of you know that we have been having a very rapid expansion in terms of our media consumption. All of you know that. I mean, it's now important to wean people away from media effectively. Otherwise, we're spending close to 4, 5 to 6 hours a day only in consuming what comes out. And may not be a great thing, but effectively, that there is a huge expansion because of the digital access and this creator-led communication that's now become the linchpin of the advertising economy. A lot of integration that's happening with e-commerce, and now that you have a lot of content flowing in with the help of artificial intelligence, obviously this segment needs to have a much deeper and closer understanding. This segment is becoming large, this segment is becoming complex, and obviously this segment is also becoming very, very consequential. So I'm pretty certain that as this sector grows in scale and sophistication, the question that lies all before all of us is, how do we create and how do we build in our country an advertising ecosystem that's not just innovative and globally competitive, but a system that's truthful, transparent, and what you call it as public trust. And that's why I like this concept called AdTrust, because that lies at the heart of any campaign that one should be running. So friends, let's look at what is the current scale, what is the current growth trajectory, and what are the structural changes that are happening in the advertising ecosystem. I have some figures before me. The current size of the advertising economy roughly is about 1,60,000 crores. It's huge, right? And about a growth of about 10 to 15,000 crores over last year. And these are huge numbers, impressive numbers. And when you look at it, the bulk of it is now coming in from the digital side. Close to about 60% of it is being accounted by the digital streams. There could be plus and minuses here and there, but the industry estimates are that television is roughly around 1/4, around 25%, print is around 10%, and outdoor radio, etc., are making up the rest. One interesting development which is happening is that influencer marketing is now growing at almost an 18% compounded annual growth rate, and likely to touch around 4,000 crores of rupees, which again goes to show that how advertising has now become democratized and, as they call it, decentralized and hyper-local. So the fact is, all this goes to show that the advertising industry is decisively moving towards digital platforms, data-led targeting, and obviously performance-oriented formats. What has also become very striking now is that digital is no longer considered only as a supplementary activity. I mean, the government used to consider digital always as a supplementary activity. We had no policy for digital advertisements till about a year and a half back. But now it's considered not just as an integral, it's considered as a primary growth engine. And we also expect that while linear television is going down, but it's expected to remain broadly stable. And we also feel that print, we may like it or not, but the fact is every day morning when we wake up, we are looking, our arms actually go out and reach out to a newspaper, because we know that print is trust rich. And we still have a lot of regional variants to it. So print is obviously going to remain pretty stable. This also goes to show that this transition, as there have a lot of young people on the backside, he's also opened up a lot of new spaces for new generation of startups and technology-led firms, not just in edtech, in marktech, in creative commerce, in retail media, analytics, in attribution, AI-generated creative production, and even campaign optimization. So there are a lot of scopes and possibilities for many startups to flourish and grow in this particular segment. And all these new digital ecosystems and creations like quick commerce, advertising, MSME, digital advertising, commerce-led platforms, creator-led recommendation systems, and all these systems are actually expanding the advertising revenues and the universe beyond the traditional agency model that we have. We can see that a lot of churning happening in the agency models. There are companies getting merged, there are companies getting extinguished, there are new players coming in. But I think all this is actually telling us that we in our country, and obviously possibly the rest of the world as well, are moving increasingly towards a real-time, multi-format, algorithmically distributed, and commerce-led and commerce-linked ecosystem. So this is how the trajectory of the advertising industry is based on the data that we have. And I think that also means that we need to have a very new and fresh thinking on how do we bring in governance, how do we bring in accountability, and most importantly, how do we bring in consumer protection at the heart of the advertising efforts that we have. As I mentioned to you, advertising revenues lie at the heart of the media and entertainment segment. And but for you, I think many of us would not possibly have enjoyed the World Cup victories. We had 5 of them this year. So I think you had contributed to a lot of happiness around, a lot of buying in turn, because happiness always allows people to be more exuberant in buying. So obviously it allows people to be to build to the growth in the economy as well. And M&E segment also, while you are the major contributors to the segment, besides the subscription part, is also growing at a brisk pace. And obviously here also the digital part is growing much bigger. Close to about 30% of the total revenues now are coming from the digital stream. So both are, I think, moving concomitantly, if one may try to understand the economics of it. So it's a fact that when advertising grows, as I was mentioning to you, in a healthy and credible way, it not just supports happiness, it supports market activity, it supports job creation, it supports, importantly, the fourth estate of our country, funds journalism. Because without that, the democracy would not be there at all. So you have a very important role in helping this country grow democratically, fund journalism, and obviously allow us to also communicate the gains that the country makes to the people at large. And friends, there's also a constitutional dimension to this entire discussion. All of you would know that Article 19(1)(a) that guarantees the fundamental right to each one of us, the fundamental right of freedom of expression. And that's what gives us the right to, tell what we want to. Obviously, within the guardrails that we should not indulge in deceptive, we should not do unfair, we should not do misleading and untruthful commercial speeches. Because I think if you are monetizing your speech, it's important that we have enough guardrails. So friends, India's task is, from our side, I would like to tell each one of you that we don't look at you as suspect. It's our job to protect the legitimate role of advertising in our society, in a democratic society. And while the guardrails of falsehood and illegality should ensure that they do not become and do not hide behind this overall language of commercial freedom. Let's come to the next part, which is what I was trying to highlight to you in my initial course of conversation. As I mentioned to you, digital advertising is expanding at rates which are double the rate at which the regular advertising is happening. It has to a very large extent democratized access. Today, a large brand or a startup or even a D2C entrepreneur, a local business, a chai wala or a mom and pop shop close to your neighborhood, and even an individual creator is able to reach consumers at scale, unlike what used to happen in the past. And this is a very positive development because it, to a very large extent, is reducing the entry barriers. It's allowing and improving the market discovery, and it's giving smaller firms visibility that was only available once to large advertisers. I mean, for example, look at cricket alone. I mean, I don't find major brands distributing their advertisements in cricket matches these days. You find startups, you find new age companies making use of this medium to, talk about their product and brand. At the same time, digital advertising is also changing the very nature of persuasion, which actually lies at the heart of the advertising campaigns that you run. And advertising is now increasingly embedded in feeds, as they call it, in recommendations, as they call it, in live streams, as they call it, short videos, even gaming environments. And with the new act being there, I think you would all lie at the heart of creating non-real money games and the gaming environment within the country. And again, it's important that now that advertising is not being offered to the consumer as what it used to appear as an advertisement earlier. Now it's almost becoming, as they call it, blended effort, because it's part of the entertainment, it's part of the consumption that we are happening. And in fact, it almost looks like a social endorsement rather than an advertisement. So I think that's where influencer-based advertising is very, very important. As I mentioned, close to about 4,000 crores of the influencer marketing economy that's developed. And it's this growth that also tells us that we need to really address ethical concerns when it comes to influencer marketing. Questions of disclosures, questions of authenticity, and questions of accountability would lie at the heart of the influencer marketing campaign. Because believe me, the fact is, when a sponsorship is not properly disclosed, a consumer would easily mistake paid persuasion for an independent opinion. And even the work that has been done in ASCI tells us that there are instances of high levels of non-compliance in influencer disclosure norms. And I think that's one area of concern that we will have to look at. And it also tells us that the issue is not marginal. There's a lot of money floating around, so its issue is not marginal. It's a systemic issue, and therefore all of us together in the government and in the industry and in the industry bodies will have to do a sustained correction. Friends, the new animal or the new elephant in the room is AI, artificial intelligence. And just like any other sector, artificial intelligence is also going to be a huge influence on the advertising sector at every stage of your value chain. At every stage of your value chain. It will help you in multiple ways. It will help you in audience analytics, something that used to consume a lot of resources earlier. Campaign planning, personalized targeting, multilingual adaptations. It's now happening. You find so much of advertising which even we do in government. It's translated into multiple languages. Also will help in creative generation. It will also help you in optimize media spends. It will help you in fraud detection. It will also help you in real-time performance measurements. And for a country like ours, multilingual, as diverse as India, I think all these applications would obviously gain a lot of productivity advantages. And it will also help in, lowering the creative barriers for small firms. A startup or even a local entrepreneur would now be able to generate campaign variants, region-specific creatives at speed and cost, which were actually not possible earlier. So at that level, it actually tells us that the advertising ecosystem is going to become more inclusive, and it will also get a broader participation coming in from everywhere. But while this might be the rosy side to it, AI does pose huge risks. We're already seeing that in terms of the generation of a lot of fabricated endorsements. Many court cases have also started to come in our country. Synthetic identities, manipulated testimonials. There are voices that are getting cloned. There are deep fakes which are getting stylized as promotional content, and highly targeted deceptive messaging. All this is being used not only to improve advertising, but actually to industrialize fraud, if one may use that word. And friends, in the advertising sector, the danger is not only that content may become misleading. The danger is that AI can make misleading content look authentic. And in a country where we still have diverse understanding of issues and nuances, this can become, to an extent, a big disaster. Because the line between legitimate persuasion and an engineered deception, which is happening now, is becoming thinner and thinner. And it will be very difficult for ordinary user to understand where the camouflage is. So it's important that we encourage AI-led innovation in advertising. But I think all the existing guardrails that I mentioned to you earlier in influencer marketing would have to apply. And I'm sure you will have deliberations during this conference on that. The next area that I like to touch upon will be the areas of frauds, scams, and harms that are happening through advertising. And it's a huge contemporary concern, especially in the digital advertising domain, where channels are being used for frauds, scams, and unlawful inducements. We have also been seeing that in our country, consumers are being lured through social media advertisements, sponsored posts, fake endorsements. Many WhatsApp groups have been created for this. There are websites which have been cloned, fabricated trading dashboards, and all this are becoming a huge element of the frauds, the financial frauds that are being wreaked upon our citizens. Loans and investment scams, again, is a major example. In fact, you would have also seen that SEBI has been issuing formal cautions on stock market scams. And in many cases, we have seen that such users were actually drawn in through Instagram, Facebooks, and similar sponsored online promotions, which actually promise people unusually high returns. Employment scams is another area of concern. You might have recently heard that in Rajasthan, a police action was taken which exposed a work-from-home fraud that duped thousands of people by promising them jobs in return for some security deposits, etc. And all these scams are preying on gullible citizens and youth, on their anxieties, unemployment, and trust. And the problem is they often target those who are able to least absorb such financial losses. That's a major worry. With the new act coming in now, you all would have understood that betting and gambling is now clearly expressed through the parliament as to what is legal, what is not. And betting and gambling provisions and promotions still remain a matter of concern. We have been advising all the media entities not to have advertising for the betting platforms, and including the surrogate promotion that actually happens, especially now that we all understand the financial and socio-economic risks that are involved, especially for our younger generation. So friends, that's why special caution is necessary in all such cases. Another area of concern that's coming in now is advertisements that are flowing in from offshore, from flowing in from outside India. And it's not a theoretical concern. We are seeing that bulk of the investment and employment related scams are actually operating from outside jurisdictions. And we have issued advisories from the ministry's side. And what will require for all these cross-border advertising will require not just responses in a particular domain, will require responses across law, platform governance, cyber enforcement, and obviously the self-regulatory frameworks. So friends, as India's digital economy grows, all these issues will become very, very important. Another good thing that's happened, and I'm told that you're going to have some releases happening now, would be to talk about this multiplicity of laws that are there in the segment. We understand that advertising industry is not governed by one law, but there are a network of constitutional principles, sectoral statutes, consumer protection norms, platform rules, code directions, financial regulations, and also self-regulatory codes. And sometimes, depending on the subject matter, one advertisement can implicate multiple legal and regulatory frameworks at once. And this multiplicity also reflects the fact that advertising actually cuts across sectors. So I think it's good that in this context, you're creating a compendium on advertising laws, which is going to be released. I'm sure this is going to be very valuable and it's really timely. It will help each one of us, all the stakeholders here, to understand the regulatory landscape better. It will also reduce the avoidable uncertainties that are there. And all of us are law-abiding people, and it will help us in supporting informed compliance. Online advertisements, and which is where the role of the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting lies. It's formally within the mandate of the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. And believe me, friends, from MIB's side, our approach is twin. We look at it with seriousness and we look at it with balance. We understand the economic and creative importance of the advertising sector, but we also recognize the need for consumer protection, legal compliance, and institutional coordination when advertising crosses into deception, illegality, or public harm. So our approach is going to be pro-trust, pro-growth, and pro-responsibility. As I was mentioning to you, a vibrant advertising industry is in India's interest. And it's also important that this growth is accompanied by accountability. And what we always intend to do is that the regulations that come out needs to be practical, consultative, and sensitive to operational realities. One example of it is known to each one of you. When the issue of self-declaration certificate came in, we acted very promptly. All of you would know that, especially at times when country was going through general elections, and we really had no political leadership actually at that time to talk to also. But we ensured that we not just implemented the court order, but at the same time, we looked at all the issues that were raised by all of you, all the stakeholders, and we could come up with guidelines which actually helped the entire industry. So, what's the road ahead? So friends, from my side, what I can say is the first principle would be truthfulness. And truthfulness in advertising should remain non-negotiable. No communication strategy, however innovative it might sound, can justify false claims, concealed material information, fabricated endorsements, or deceptive omissions. Credibility is in the long run, the greatest commercial asset than exaggeration, because all such exaggerated claims would get busted in due course, if not by yourself, by your own competitors. The second principle that we would look at is transparency. A consumer should be able to identify when the message is an advertisement, who is behind it, what relationship exists between the promoter and the product, and whether the message is altered, sponsored, or AI generated. The third principle is responsibility in design and delivery. It's no longer enough to look only at the literal words of a claim. It's also important whether the format, the interface is unfairly manipulative, especially now that you have digital and high frequency advertising that happens through the new world. The fourth principle for us is special protection for vulnerable groups, especially children and young users. Communication that may be technically compliant for adults like us may still be harmful when delivered to children through immersive, gamified, or creator-led formats. I assume that you are going to have high standard of care for such sections. The fifth principle is obviously innovation with accountability. We should lead in AI, we should lead in data-led marketing, we should lead in immersive formats, we should lead in creator-led advertising, but we should also ensure that our system strengthens trust and does not erode it in any which way. So friends, I'm very happy that I'm part of this conference here. As you understand, these are very important times, but I thought, this is one moment where I could meet the industry, interact with you, gain from your understanding, gain from your knowledge, gain from your insights, so that we can build a vibrant advertising ecosystem in our country. To sum it up, I can only say that my call to action, if you would agree, to all the advertisers would be that build brands not only on reach, but on credibility. A campaign that wins attention but loses trust, in the end, in my understanding, is a weak campaign. To all the agencies and the platforms, compliance should not be treated as a back-end formality. It has to be embedded into your own workflows. You should review the internal processes, all your creator contracts, all your ad policies, including the systems of algorithmic governance that you have. You need to build trust into your architecture. And to all the creators, influencers, and endorsers, believe me, friends, influence word looks very simple, but it comes with huge responsibilities. Your credibility with audience has the value only because it is perceived as authentic. And this trust should not be diluted in any which way by, hidden, I use the word hidden, by hidden sponsorships, irresponsible amplification, and association with unlawful and harmful products. India lies at the crossroads of growth and Viksit Bharat, as our Honorable Prime Minister has given a call to action to the entire country. So we have the opportunity to build not just one of the world's largest advertising markets, but actually one of the world's most trusted advertising ecosystems. And believe me, friends, that should be our shared ambition. Thank you. Jai Hind. Vande Mataram.